Hello, Physionic dedicated podcast. If you're not familiar with who I am, my name is Nicholas Verhoeven. I am a PhD student in molecular medicine. If you're watching this podcast episode, then you know that the environment I'm in is a little bit different from usual. Well, I'm in a bit of a psychological funk today, so I just decided to sit outside a little bit and enjoy the sunny rays as they present themselves. But today I did want to talk about a particular topic that I think is incredibly important related to superbugs and why washing our hands is incredibly important. I think we all kind of intuitively know that, but I think understanding some of the science behind why that's important is telling, and obviously just education in general is important. If you see me slapping myself at various times, that would be because of the mosquito infestation as they realize that I'm out here for the blood sucking. Also, the other thing I wanted to briefly discuss is antibiotics and why you should be taking all of your antibiotics that are prescribed to you in full. And I mean that in terms of consuming them for the allotted time that you're supposed to be consuming them, so for the entire time. So what I mean by superbugs is essentially bacteria or viruses, whatever it might be, that mutate over time and start to combat a lot of the different treatments that we have or the different cures for these different older iterations of that bug, which now turns into a superbug. Now, how that occurs is when we are exposed continuously to different pathogens, different bacteria, and those bacteria then get assaulted by our immune system, of course, and our immune system is always going to be adapting to destroy these bugs. But sometimes, obviously, it needs a little bit of help, or it could use a little bit of help. You'll probably get over it on your own, but in the vast majority of cases. But in some cases, your immune system can't handle it. So in that situation, you go to your doctor, and your doctor prescribes you some sort of antibiotic if it is a bacterial infection. And what a lot of people do is they consume that antibiotic for, let's say the doctor says you have to take this for 14 days, and they end up deciding to take it only for 6 days because they start feeling better after the third day, and then they're like, okay, well, I feel perfectly fine after the 6th day. The issue with that is that there's a high risk that the pathogen or the bacteria that you were exposed to, that antibiotic killed some of the weaker versions of that bacteria and some maybe middle grade versions of that bacteria, but some of the stronger versions of that bacteria, even though they're incredibly tiny in amount, they are no longer being exposed to the antibiotic, and because they were initially exposed to the antibiotic, they can mutate to become more resistant to the antibiotic. So the actual genes of that bacteria become more robust, become better able to fight the antibiotic. So you may feel better, like on a conscious level, but your body is still fighting that bacteria, that pathogen. And then if it were to take ground, if your immune system can't take care of it, then you're in the exact same position a week later. And it's not a different infection. It's the same infection that you just didn't take care of. So if you consciously feel better about being sick, like you're not sick anymore, you don't feel sick anymore, that's not a good enough indication. You need to completely get rid of all the bacteria from the get-go. And sometimes even when you consume all the antibiotics, you could still end up in this similar situation. But at least you did everything you possibly could to fight off that bacteria, that pathogen. And one of the really dangerous things about this is the fact that if some of those bacteria actually survive, then there's a process called lateral gene transfer where they can essentially export DNA, so the mutated DNA itself, out of itself. So the bacteria will get rid of or send out some of its DNA and that DNA can then integrate into another bacteria that doesn't have that robust ability to fight off this antibiotic. So suddenly, not only is the original bacteria resistant to your antibiotic, but other bacteria are also suddenly now resistant to that antibiotic due to this lateral gene transfer. So for that reason, you absolutely should be taking all of your antibiotics for the exact amount of time that is prescribed, regardless of if you feel better. If you've been feeling better for 4 days, 5 days, a week already, you still need to finish the antibiotics. So that's point number 1. Now, point number 2, washing your hands. One of the best things you can possibly do for your health and just to avoid general infection, and you could go either way. Sure, maybe if you want to be exposed to different infections, that's up to you. That's your own prerogative. But for the vast majority of individuals who don't want to get sick, washing your hands is incredibly important. Not only because then you're not exposed to particular superbugs, but also just washing your hands, regardless of the superbug, it's going to get washed off. So it's not even going to get within your actual system. It's not going to get into your circulatory system. So, I mean, it's really that simple. I mean, once it's in your system, of course, you want to take the different antibiotics, and hopefully you're not exposed to a superbug that somebody else, unfortunately, did not take care of when they should have. But if you are exposed to it and it's just on your skin, then washing your hands is a great way to just literally wash it away. You're not even necessarily killing that bacteria. You're just getting it off your system or off of your skin so it doesn't get into your bodily system. Okay, well, here's my rationale. Lateral gene transfer and gene mutations for why you should absolutely be taking all of your antibiotics. And certainly, again, that doesn't necessarily guarantee it's going to get rid of the superbug, but there's a much, much lower chance that you are still going to have to deal with that issue. And of course, washing your hands is just a common, decent practice to do just for your own general health. All right, with that said, if you've got any comments, then please feel free to comment them. I will be happy to hear your opinions and to engage in some discussion on the matter. And with that said, I hope I have the pleasure of speaking with you in the next one. Have a good one, guys. See ya.